Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. We got a double shot of best to worst albums today. So here on this edition of best to worst albums, we are going to look at the classic British hard rock act Spooky Tooth. Okay, not a very common band, but a really, really great band nonetheless who kind of burst on the scene in the late 60s. All petered out by the early 70s, right? They didn't last too long, but a nice selection of really strong albums, or at least most of them anyway. Some notable names appeared in the Spooky Tooth band. So you got, Mike Harrison and, oh boy, Mick Jones, who later went to Foreigner, and of course Gary Wright and Luther Grosnivor, or Ariel Bender, whatever you want to call him, who also was in Mott the Hoople and Widowmaker, and so a lot of guys. Greg Ridley, bass player, who went on to Humble Pie. So a lot of really good players kind of showed up over the years in Spooky Tooth. And I'm a big fan of a lot of these albums, so I figured I'd rank them for you. Now, I just want to kind of throw out there, I do not own the Cross Purpose album that they did in like 1999. So they did like a reunion album many, many years after they broke up, like 25 years after they broke up. I don't have that, never heard it, so I'm just not going to discuss it here. I haven't heard great things about it, so I just never bothered to get it. But I'm going to talk about all the other albums from the late 60s and the 70s that I own. I'm even going to cheat, and I'm going to throw one into this list that's technically not a Spooky Tooth album, but I'm going to include it anyway. So when we get to it, we'll discuss more. So my least favorite album, the worst album, in my opinion, that Spooky Tooth ever released, and I still to this day don't really get why they ever did this album. It's just a weird, weird album. They did this album with this electronic artist named Pierre Henry. I believe Pierre was French. And it's just a weird-ass album. It's called Ceremony and Electronic Mass. So this is basically Spooky Tooth with this electronic musician, Pierre Henry, who did a lot of kind of like, I guess you can call that guy avant-garde, like Tangerine Dream style stuff, but even weirder than that, right? And this is just a weird-ass album of the Spooky Tooth band with him. And most of it just is like, what is this? It's not really a rock album, right? Most of the tracks are just really bizarre. I like the song Offering, which is more of like a traditional Spooky Tooth hard rock tune, but with like all of this weird, rambling, sputtering synth stuff in it. But otherwise, just a really strange album. And this caused a lot of problems. It didn't sell shit when it first came out, but it caused a lot of problems within the band, who, most of them felt they should not have done this album, at least not as a Spooky Tooth album, right? So kind of started like a turn of events that featured lots of, the band would break up and then they get back together, but with, only half the original members, and then guys would leave, come back, leave, come back. Very tumultuous years going forward after this, but yeah, weird stuff. I'd say if you're like a partial Spooky Tooth fan, maybe have a couple albums. Maybe after you watch a show, you're looking to get into more of their albums. I would say go on YouTube and listen to this first before you buy it, because this is not going to be for everybody, all right? Just weird stuff. All right, next up. I like this album, but it's not one of their stronger ones. Again, this is another instance of the band in turmoil. So this came out shortly after this one. And this is called The Last Puff Spooky Tooth, featuring Mike Harrison. The reason why it says that is because Mike Harrison is the only classic member of the band on this album. So here we had, and Luther Grosnivor was involved, did some recording on it, but then left. And then you got like the majority of Joe Cocker's Grease band, including Henry McCullough, who also was in Wings, joining. Decent enough album, but it's filled with like cover tunes. I think there's only like maybe one or two original tunes that they wrote for this. And it's okay. It's just kind of flat, right? So, they do a nice version of Eye on the Walrus by the Beatles. You got a Joe Cocker tune on here. You got, a bunch of Elton John, Bernie Taupin song on here, Son of the Father. The title track, The Last Puff, is pretty cool. I mean, it's not a bad album, but it's just kind of flat, right? Bunch of cover tunes. None of them are overly, great. Nothing much to write home about. So those are by far the worst Spooky Tooth albums, in my opinion. All the ones I'm going to mention now are actually pretty damn strong. So, again, some of these might switch over time. The top 3 or 4 are actually pretty set in stone for me, but these next couple are just equally as good. The You Broke My Heart, So I Busted Your Jaw album. This is very good. Okay, so this also features, by now Luther is gone from the band. This has got Mick Jones on guitar, lead guitar. Of course, he would go on to start front Foreigner. This is a very strong album. Some really good tunes on here. Cotton Growing Man is great. Wildfire is great. Self-Seeking Man. A good mix of, like, you know, just really strong hard rock with more some melodic, poppier tunes. I like this a lot. Really, really strong. And I like Spooky Tooth. It's just a really good underrated band. Next up is Witness. Again, these two equally as good in my opinion. Very good, like mid-period Spooky Tooth. Again, you got Mick Jones in the band here as well. You know, Harrison and Wright, the classic guys. Don't Ever Stray Away is awesome. All Sewn Up is great. Dream Me a Mountain is awesome. What else we got in here? Things Change. As Long as the World Keeps Turning. Nice swirling Hammond organ, you know, really good hard rock riffs, great vocals from Harrison and Wright occasionally. Just a really, really solid album. Okay. Now we're going to go to their debut. So this is obviously late in the 60s, so the music was a little more kind of psychedelic in nature. The band would get heavier as they would go along. But I still like this album because it's, if you like, I think, like those very early Deep Purple albums, you know, so Book of Talisman and Taliesin, I should say, Shades of Purple, that sort of stuff. So that kind of like psychedelic with lots of Hammond organ, you know, good guitar work. This is, of course, their debut, which, God, what was actually the name of this one? Is it self-titled? I think it is. Yeah, God, I can't. I forget, to be honest with you. I don't have my glasses on. The light is crazy. Yeah, I believe this is just, yeah, Spooky Tooth, self-titled, right? But it's got some really good tunes on here. Society's Child is really good. Too Much of Nothing is good. Sunshine Help Me, that's kind of like, again, that kind of poppy late 60s psychedelic. They do a version of Tobacco Road on here, which is pretty cool. It's All About a Roundabout. Just really, really strong stuff. And again, this is the Edsel reissue, which is kind of nice. It's got, if you pick this up, you'll see all sorts of, you know, interesting factoids and pictures about the band and stuff, which is kind of nice. So, you know, I dig it. I dig it. Love all the different lineups and things of Spooky Tooth. All right, so coming in next, they're actually their last album of the 70s before they broke up for a long period of time. And I actually really like this album a lot. But of course, this does not have Mike Harrison on it. Basically, it's got, you know, this Gary Wright and a bunch of other dudes, you know, Mick Jones, obviously. But a really strong album of great songs, more of like a mid-70s good hard rock album with that's very melodic. The Mirror, great cover. There's great tunes on here like Fantasy Starfighter. Fantasy Satisfier, sorry. What else is good on here? Woman in Gold is great. Higher Circles. Hell or High Water is a great, great tune. I'm Alive, the title track, and the Hoofer. Just top to bottom, really catchy tunes. Again, the band kind of becoming more of like a arena rock, coming into more of an arena rock sound. But with great keyboards, a lot of blistering guitar work, great vocals. Very, very underrated album. And again, dig it quite a bit. It's my top 3. So this next one, I told you I was going to throw you a little curveball here, and I'm kind of cheating here a little bit. So right before the band changed their name to Spooky Tooth, they actually were going under the name of Art, okay? And they released this album called Supernatural Fairy Tales. This is basically 4 out of the 5 guys in the original Spooky Tooth lineup going by the name of Art. It sounds like Spooky Tooth, and for the most part it is Spooky Tooth. So I'm going to cheat here and throw this in here, even though it's not a Spooky Tooth album in name alone. But a really, really good late 60s release that's, again, psychedelic, but a lot of that early like prog sound is here. There's even some like real heavy passages on here that, you know, if you're a fan of like the early Deep Purple and Black Sabbath sound, some really heavy guitar work in here from Mr. Luther, right? Really solid, really solid. I like this a lot. A early like proto-prog semi-classic, right? Again, with the band, they're called Art here, but all intents and purposes, this is basically the original Spooky Tooth band, or at least 4 out of the 5 of them. Really, really wonderful stuff. And of course, my favorite, no surprise to anybody, this is on most people's list of favorite Spooky Tooth albums, Spooky 2. All right, it's got some classics on here. This is our hard rock gem, little bits of folk on here as well. But Wait for the Wind, Feeling Bad, I've Got Enough Heartaches, The Massive Evil Woman. What a blistering, heavy blues rock tune that is, man. Woo! If you haven't heard anything from this album, just go onto YouTube. Evil Woman, Spooky Tooth. You're going to love it. Great riffs and blistering lead guitar work from Lou the Grosvenor. What else in here? Lost in My Dream. That was only yesterday. Better by You, Better Than Me. If you thought that was a Judas Priest original, it is not. That is a Spooky Tooth song. Man, Spooky Tooth. I just can't get that out today. What else? Hangman, Hangman, Hang My Shell on a Tree. Another great tune. So, yeah, this is easily the best Spooky Tooth album. So let's go backwards. So, best album, Spooky 2. Not a Spooky Tooth album in name, but art, Supernatural Fairy Tales, The Mirror, The Debut, Witness, You Broke My Heart, So I Busted Your Jaw. That would hurt, right? The Last Puff. And last, and certainly least, Ceremony. One of the weirdest albums ever. So there you have it. Like I said, I don't have the Cross Purpose album from '99. Never heard it, so I can't really comment on it. But these are the ones, these are all the 70s albums. And for the most part, the last 2, all the rest, well worth having. So that's it. Spooky Tooth. Tune in tomorrow. Blue Oyster Cult Top 10 Songs. You've been asking for it. It's coming. So this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on the mighty YouTube as often as possible. So stay tuned. Got more stuff coming at you. Take care.